The scent of lemon oil and old mahogany hung heavy in the narrow hallway. A man in a tailored charcoal suit stood completely frozen, his hand hovering an inch above a small denim jacket resting on the wooden bench. He did not touch it. He only stared at the bright yellow embroidery stitched into the collar. One name: Evander. His breathing changed. He had come to this house to tear it down to the studs. He had come to finally erase the woman he believed had ruined him. But standing in that Brooklyn mudroom, staring at a child's jacket, he realized something was terribly wrong. To understand how a ruthless millionaire CEO ended up brought to his knees inside the home he came to destroy, we have to go back 2 hours. Back to the exact moment he stepped onto her porch, armed with an eviction notice, 7 years of bitter anger, and no idea that the truth waiting behind that door would break him. Have you ever watched someone hold the detonator to your life, completely unaware of what they are about to blow up? Before we dive deeper into this story, I want to take a second to appreciate the beautiful, faithful women tuning in today. So many of you spend your lives pouring into others, carrying your families with grace, strength, and unshakable faith. This channel is your sanctuary, a place where we celebrate women finally getting the peace and justice they deserve. If you want to bless this channel and help our sisterhood grow, please hit the subscribe button now. It is completely free and means the world to me. Drop "I'm an exceptional queen" in the comments and let me know what state or city you are listening from. Now sit back and enjoy this story. Today we are watching a man try to bulldoze his own legacy, only to find out the foundation is stronger than he ever imagined. 2 hours earlier, the Bedford-Stuyvesant brownstone was alive with quiet celebration. The local historical society had gathered in the restored front parlor. Soft jazz drifted from a vintage record player in the corner. The room smelled of expensive perfume and the sharp, clean scent of wood polish. Nia Caldwell stood near the fireplace, a glass of sparkling water in her hand. She wore a simple emerald green dress, though a canvas work apron was still tied around her waist. She had spent the entire morning on her hands and knees, restoring the original mahogany baseboards. The society members admired the crown molding. They ran their hands over the floral wallpaper Nia had painstakingly preserved. They praised her dedication to keeping the neighborhood's history intact. Nia smiled and thanked them. This house was her sanctuary. It was where her grandmother had hidden runaway cousins during the civil rights era. It was where Nia had learned to strip varnish and rebuild broken things. It was the only safe harbor she had left in the world. Then the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Nia felt the shift before she saw him. The low murmur of conversation near the entryway faded. She turned her head. Julian Mercer stood framed by the afternoon light spilling through the stained glass transom. He wore a charcoal bespoke suit that probably cost more than her grandmother's vintage dining set. His hair was cropped close, severe and immaculate. His eyes, the color of steeped black tea, scanned the room with flat, deadened calculation. He did not look like a man attending a historical society gala. He looked like a man inspecting a demolition site. Nia's breath caught in her throat. 7 years. It had been 7 years since she had seen him. Back then, Julian had been a brilliant, starving architecture student who believed buildings should serve the soul. Now, he was the CEO of Mercer Development. He was a man who paved over souls for profit. When his wealthy, politically connected family had intervened in their relationship all those years ago, Julian had walked away. He had chosen his empire over her. Julian did not announce himself. He simply stood by the door and waited. He watched Nia say her goodbyes to the society members. He watched her walk them to the door. He watched the heavy oak door close, sealing them inside the house together. The silence that followed was absolute. Nia set her glass down on the mantel. She wiped her hands on her apron, refusing to let him see the tremor in her fingers. She kept her voice steady. "Mr. Mercer." Julian stepped over the threshold. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the original hardwood. The sound was sharp and intrusive. "Nia." His voice was a low, polished baritone. It was stripped of the warm, rumbling cadence she had memorized a lifetime ago. There was no recognition in his face. There was no warmth. "I told your lawyers I'm not signing the buyout," Nia said. Julian did not stop walking. He moved into the center of the parlor, looking around at the antique radiator and the scuffed baseboards. For a fraction of a second, a muscle feathered in his cheek. Then the mask slipped back into place. "I am not here to negotiate, Nia. My firm bought the debt on this property. The foreclosure is finalized. You have 72 hours to vacate before the demolition crews arrive." The word hung in the air, heavy and violent. Demolition. "You are tearing it down," Nia said. The wound opened fresh in her chest, but she did not let it show in her voice. 120 years of history, Julian. For what? Another glass high-rise that none of the people in this neighborhood can afford. Julian turned to face her. His expression was entirely unreadable. "It is just real estate, Nia. Do not romanticize a depreciating asset. Take the relocation check. It is more than generous." He reached into his breast pocket. He pulled out a folded cashier's check and placed it on the entryway console table. He set it right next to a stack of unopened mail. Nia did not look at the money. She looked at him. She remembered the boy who used to let her braid his hair on lazy Sunday mornings. That boy was gone. In his place was a stranger who viewed her life as a liability on a spreadsheet. "I do not want your money," Nia said. Her tone dropped to a quiet, unbreakable register. "And I am not leaving." Julian sighed. It was a sound of profound irritation. "I need to do a walkthrough. I need to assess the structural liabilities before the crew gets here on Monday." Nia held his gaze. She would not beg. She would not explain her pain to a man who had already proven he did not care. She absorbed his cruelty and let it harden her spine. "Fine," Nia said. She stepped aside and gestured toward the hallway. "Look." She turned her back on him and walked toward the kitchen. She needed a moment to breathe. She needed to remember why she was fighting. In the kitchen, the late afternoon sun spilled across the linoleum. Pinned to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a sunflower was a piece of construction paper. Drawn in thick, waxy crayon was a lopsided brown square. 2 stick figures held hands in front of it. At the top, written in careful, backward-leaning letters, was a name. Evander and Mom. Nia touched the edge of the paper. Her quiet power lived in that name. Evander, her 6-year-old son. He was currently at his Aunt Loretta's house across town. He was safe from the wrecking ball of Julian Mercer's ambition. Julian did not know about him. Julian had never known. She heard Julian's footsteps moving down the hallway. He was walking through the space with the clinical detachment of a coroner. Nia followed at a distance. Her dignity was her shield. Julian stopped in the mudroom near the back door. It was a small space lined with brass hooks. He was looking at the electrical panel on the wall. Then his eyes drifted downward. There, sitting on a low wooden bench, was a child's cubby. Inside rested a pair of light-up canvas sneakers. Next to them was a small denim jacket. Embroidered on the collar of the jacket in bright yellow thread was a single word: Evander. Julian froze. Nia watched from the doorway as his shoulders went rigid. Evander. It was Julian's middle name. Julian Evander Mercer. It was a name given to him by his late father. It was a name he had legally dropped from his professional life because it sounded too soft for the cutthroat world of Manhattan real estate. Julian stared at the jacket. He reached out. His long fingers hovered an inch above the yellow thread. A flicker of something raw and unguarded crossed his face. It looked like confusion. It looked like a ghost of an old memory. Then the armor slammed back down. He pulled his hand away. "You have a tenant living here?" Julian asked. His voice was clipped. He did not turn around. "A family?" "That is none of your business," Nia replied smoothly. Julian turned to face her. His eyes were hard again. "It is my business if there are squatters on my property. It complicates the eviction. I do not care who is living in the back rooms, Nia. Monday morning, the bulldozers come. If you are not out, the city marshals will remove you." He pushed past her, heading toward the pantry. Nia closed her eyes. He was so determined to see her as an obstacle. He wanted to view her as a squatter in her own ancestral home. In the pantry, Julian was shining his phone's flashlight against the doorframe. He was looking for water damage. Instead, he found something that made him stop breathing. Carved into the white painted wood were a series of horizontal lines. They were accompanied by dates. It was a growth chart. Evander, age 2. Evander, age 4. Evander, age 5. Julian traced the lowest line with his thumb. He did the math. 7 years ago, he and Nia had been torn apart. The boy was 6. A cold prickle of unease washed over him. He looked at Nia. She was leaning against the doorframe. Her arms were crossed. Her chin was held high. "Who is Evander?" Julian asked. The name felt strange and heavy on his tongue. "My son," Nia said. She did not flinch. She did not offer a last name. Julian's eyes darkened. A bitter, cynical laugh escaped him. "A son. Of course. And I suppose the father is out of the picture? Or did you use the $500,000 my mother gave you to buy this place and set up a new life?" Nia's breath hitched. The air in the room seemed to vanish. "What did you just say?" she asked. "Do not play dumb," Julian snapped. The polished CEO veneer cracked. The wounded, angry boy beneath was suddenly visible. The payoff. "My mother told me she paid you to leave me alone. She said you took the money, bought this house, and never looked back. I spent 7 years thinking you sold us out for a check." Nia stared at him. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. A payoff. Her mother had been facing deportation. Her family had been on the brink of ruin. Julian's mother, Eleanor Mercer, had come to Nia with a threat, not an offer. She had threatened to have Nia's father arrested for a crime he did not commit. She had promised to ensure their family was destroyed. Nia had left to protect them. She had never taken a dime. She had worked 3 jobs. She had restored furniture until her hands bled. She had kept this house through sheer, agonizing willpower. "I never took your mother's money," Nia said. Her voice trembled with a rage so pure it felt like ice. "This house has been in my family for 4 generations. I did not buy it with your hush money, Julian. I kept it with my own blood." Julian stared at her. He wanted to believe her, but his pride was a fortress built on a foundation of betrayal. "Save it for the judge," he muttered. He turned away. "If you are still here, drop a heart in the comments, just so I know you are with me for what is coming." Julian turned his back on her. He walked toward the front parlor, his footsteps heavy with unearned victory. Nia stood in the pantry, her hands gripping the edge of the doorframe. She closed her eyes and took a slow, deep breath. She had survived 7 years without him. She could survive this. Then the back door rattled. Nia's eyes snapped open. The heavy deadbolt clicked. It was only 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Evander was not supposed to be home until 5. A cheerful voice drifted down the hallway. It was Aunt Loretta. She was humming a low gospel tune. Nia moved fast. She stepped out of the pantry and hurried toward the mudroom. She needed to intercept them before Julian reached the front door. Aunt Loretta stood on the stoop. She looked apologetic. She was holding the hand of a small boy with a mop of dark curls and wide, tea-colored eyes. Evander looked perfectly happy. He was holding a half-eaten granola bar. "The field trip to the museum got canceled," Loretta whispered. "The bus broke down. I figured I would just bring him straight home." "Is he here?" Nia felt a cold spike of adrenaline. She did not want Evander anywhere near Julian Mercer. Not today. Not when Julian was looking for reasons to destroy them. "Go to the sunroom," Nia hissed softly. She ushered them inside. "Stay quiet. Please, Loretta, just keep him in the sunroom and read him a book." Loretta nodded. She understood the tone in Nia's voice. She hurried the boy down the hall, but as they walked, Evander shrugged out of his backpack. He let it drop. It hit the hardwood floor with a heavy thud. The side pocket unzipped. A plastic asthma spacer tumbled out. It clattered loudly against the floorboards. It was a completely normal sound in their house. Evander used it every morning without a second thought. He bent down, picked it up, and slipped it into his jacket pocket. He was perfectly fine. He was just a little boy coming home from school. But the noise echoed through the quiet house. Julian stopped in his tracks. He was standing near the entryway console table. He turned slowly. He looked down the long hallway. He saw the small denim jacket in the cubby. He saw the plastic medical device in the boy's hand. And then he saw the boy himself. Evander looked up. He met Julian's gaze with mild curiosity. He did not know this man. He did not know that he was looking at his father. Julian's face went entirely blank. The mask of the ruthless CEO slipped back into place, but this time it was forged in pure, defensive ice. He did not see a child. He saw a complication. He saw a violation of his property rights. "Who is in this house?" Julian demanded. His voice echoed off the high ceilings. Nia stepped directly into his path. She blocked the hallway. She stood tall, her shoulders squared. Nobody you need to worry about, Nia said. Julian's eyes narrowed. He took a step toward her. I heard a child. I saw the medical equipment. You are running an unlicensed daycare? Or is this some kind of squat? Nia did not blink. She kept her voice perfectly level. This is my home. Who I have inside is my business. Julian let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a cruel sound. It is my business now, Nia. This is a violation of the municipal code. You are harboring unauthorized tenants in a condemned building. I can have the police here in 10 minutes to clear the premises. The midpoint gut punch landed with devastating force. He was not just threatening her property. He was threatening her family. He was willing to call the authorities on a 6-year-old boy just to expedite his demolition schedule. He was using the law as a weapon against a child. Nia looked at the man she had once loved. She saw the expensive suit. She saw the cold eyes. She saw the absolute absence of mercy. The wound he had inflicted 7 years ago was a paper cut compared to this. This was a betrayal of basic human decency. But Nia did not cry. She did not scream. She did not perform her pain for him. The silence in her was not submission. It was the quiet, terrifying calm of a mother protecting her young. She took one step closer to him. She lowered her voice to a lethal whisper. If you call the police, Nia said, I will burn this house to the ground myself before I let you put your hands on my son. Julian recoiled. He actually took a step back. He looked at her as if she were a stranger. You are insane, he said. I am a mother, Nia replied. Her voice did not waver. Get out of my house, Julian. Get out and go tell your bulldozers to come. I will be standing on the porch when they do. Julian's jaw clenched. A muscle ticked in his cheek. He did not leave. His pride would not let him be dismissed by a woman he believed had sold him out. He turned on his heel and marched toward the front parlor. He was heading for the small study where the property records were kept. I am finding the original deed, Julian called over his shoulder. I am proving you have no legal standing to be here. I will have the marshals drag you out by your hair if I have to. Nia followed him. Her heart was in her throat. She needed to get Loretta and Evander out the back door. She needed to get them to safety. But as she reached the study, she heard a loud crash. Julian had pulled open the bottom drawer of her grandmother's antique desk. He was looking for a weapon to use against her. In his haste, he had knocked over a carved cedar box. The lid had popped off. Dozens of envelopes spilled across the faded Persian rug. They were unsent letters. All of them were addressed to Julian. Nia froze in the doorway. She had written them in the dark hours of the night. She had poured her grief, her love, and her terror onto paper she knew she could never mail. They were the only place she had allowed herself to be weak. Julian was kneeling on the floor. He had picked up one of the open letters. His eyes were scanning the faded ink. The room went dead silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Julian read the words aloud. His voice was barely a whisper. Julian, your mother came to me today. She did not offer me money. She offered me a choice. Your father's freedom, or your future. I chose you. I am leaving so you can build the life you deserve. But I need you to know I am not alone. I am carrying your child. I am keeping our son safe. I named him Evander, so a part of you is always with us, even if you never know him. The silence in the room became absolute. It was a vacuum, sucking the oxygen from the air. Julian read the words again. I named him Evander. He looked up. His eyes met Nia's. The polished, ruthless CEO was gone. In his place was a man whose entire reality had just been violently inverted. You, Julian started. His voice broke. It was a ragged, ugly sound. You did not take the money I told you, Nia whispered. Tears finally spilled over her lashes, but she did not wipe them away. I told you. Julian stared at the letter. His hands trembled so violently the paper rattled. My mother, he said. He looked at the floor. She told me you took $500,000. She told me you laughed about it. I spent 7 years hating you. I bought this block because I thought you used my betrayal money to buy it. I wanted to tear it down to erase you. The twist landed in the room like a physical weight. Julian had not come to destroy her out of simple corporate greed. He had come to destroy what he believed was a monument to her betrayal. He had been weaponizing his grief. He had been entirely blind to the fact that he was destroying the only sanctuary she had left. He had built an empire on a lie, and the foundation was cracking. If you didn't see that coming, hit the like button so I know you're enjoying the drama." Before Nia could answer, a small voice spoke from the hallway. "Mummy? My chest feels tight." Julian's head snapped up. Standing in the doorway of the study was Evander. He had a mop of dark curls. He had skin the color of warm caramel. And he had eyes the exact shade of steeped black tea. He was holding his plastic asthma spacer in his hand. He was not crying. He was not in distress. He was just a little boy who needed his medicine. Evander looked at the man kneeling on the floor. "Are you the man who wants to break our house?" he asked. Julian dropped the letter. He did not stand up. He could not. His knees gave out, and he sank fully onto the Persian rug. He stared at the boy. He looked at the curve of his jaw. He looked at the shape of his eyes. He looked at the face he saw in the mirror every morning, distilled down to its purest, most innocent form. Evander. The name on the jacket. The name on the growth chart. The name in the letter. Evander, Julian breathed. The name sounded like a prayer he had not known he was holding. Nia rushed to her son. She scooped him up into her arms. She helped him take a slow, measured breath from his spacer. Her hands were shaking, but her back was turned to Julian. She held Evander tight, rocking him gently as his breathing leveled out. Julian remained on the floor. The tears came then. They were silent and devastating. He wept for the 7 years he had lost. He wept for the lies he had believed. He wept for the fact that he had walked into this house with a sledgehammer, ready to destroy the only beautiful thing he had ever created. "Nia," Julian choked out. "Please." Nia turned around. She did not offer him comfort. She did not rush to him. The wound was too deep. The betrayal was too vast. "You came here to erase us," she said. Her voice was steady. It carried the weight of a woman who had survived the worst and refused to be diminished. "I did not know," Julian pleaded. He crawled forward, but he stopped himself when he saw Nia flinch. He stayed on the floor, looking up at her. "I was blind, I was so angry, and I let her poison me, but I know now." "Nia, I know." "Knowing does not fix it, Julian. I will stop the demolition. I will call the crews right now." He pulled his phone from his pocket with shaking hands. He dialed his foreman. Nia listened as Julian, the most feared developer in the city, barked orders to halt all work on the Bedford-Stuyvesant project indefinitely. He did not care about the financial penalties. He did not care about the board of directors. He hung up the phone and looked at her. "It is done," he said. "The house is safe." Nia shifted Evander on her hip. The boy was looking at Julian with mild curiosity. He was entirely unaware that he was looking at his father. "The house was always mine," Nia said quietly. "You did not save it. You just stopped trying to kill it." Julian absorbed the blow. He deserved it. He nodded, his eyes dropping to the floor. "What do I do, Nia? Tell me how to fix this. Tell me what you need." This was the moment of earned vulnerability. The power had entirely shifted. Julian Mercer, the man who controlled skylines, was entirely at the mercy of a woman who restored antique furniture. "I need you to understand that a deed is not a father," Nia said. Her voice softened just a fraction, though her boundaries remained ironclad. "You cannot just buy your way back into our lives. And you cannot just tear down your mistakes and build something new over them. You have to do the work. The slow, quiet work." Julian looked up. There was a desperate hope in his eyes. "I will do it. Whatever it takes. I will spend the rest of my life earning my place in this room." Nia looked at him. She saw the arrogance stripped away. She saw only the man she had loved, broken and finally honest. She did not forgive him in that moment. Forgiveness was a house that had to be built brick by brick. But she opened the door. "His name is Evander," Nia said. Julian let out a shaky breath. A single tear slipped down his cheek. "I know," he whispered. "It is a beautiful name." 6 months later, the Bedford-Stuyvesant brownstone still stood tall. The brickwork had been freshly repointed. The heavy mahogany doors gleamed under the bright summer sun. The demolition crews had never returned. Instead, Mercer Development had quietly transferred the deed of the property into an irrevocable trust. The sole beneficiary was Evander Caldwell. Julian had also transferred the 3 adjacent lots into the same trust. He ensured that no one could ever threaten this block again. Julian had stepped down as CEO of his own company. He took a lesser role on the board of directors to free up his time. He did not demand custody. He did not force a reconciliation. He did not try to buy his way into Evander's affection with expensive toys or grand gestures. He had simply shown up. Week after week, Julian came to the house. He honored every boundary Nia set. He called before he came over. He never stayed past dinner. He accepted that he was a guest in the life he had almost destroyed. He did not wear bespoke suits anymore. When he came to the brownstone, he wore faded t-shirts and denim jeans. His hands, once soft and manicured, grew calloused. He spent his Saturdays doing the slow, quiet work Nia had demanded. He fixed the antique radiator in the parlor. He painted the sunroom a soft, warm yellow. He learned how to sand wood without rushing the grain. Nia stood on the front porch. She held a warm cup of tea in her hands. The evening air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine. She watched the man sitting on the front stoop. Julian was sitting on the bottom step. His hands were covered in a light dusting of sawdust from helping Nia in her workshop. Evander was sitting right next to him. Evander had a piece of construction paper on his lap. He was humming a quiet tune. He was perfectly safe and entirely at peace. "What are you drawing, Ev?" Julian asked. His voice was warm. It carried the deep, rumbling cadence that had finally returned to him. Evander held up the paper. It was a drawing of the brownstone. The windows were colored in bright blue crayon, but this time there were 3 stick figures standing in front of the door. "Us," Evander said simply. Julian looked at the drawing. He swallowed hard. Then he looked up. His eyes met Nia's across the porch. There was no triumph in his gaze. There was no arrogant victory. There was only a profound, quiet gratitude. He had spent his entire life building towers of glass. He had tried to touch the sky. Only now did he realize that his true foundation had been waiting for him in a house he had almost destroyed. Nia took a slow sip of her tea. The warmth spread through her chest. She had been made to feel small. She had been discarded and erased by a woman who thought money could buy silence. But as she stood on the porch of her family's legacy, she knew she had never been taller. She had protected her son. She had held her ground. And love, real and enduring, had finally met her at her full value. Cruelty had been answered. Loyalty had been rewarded. But the real victory was not the house. It was the truth. A secret kept in love becomes a prison. The truth, even when it hurts, is always the kinder choice. Now I want to know from you. If you were in her shoes, would you have given him the chance to apologize, or was walking away the only answer? Tell me in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, subscribe for the next one.